only. God vibes only. God vibes only. God vibes only. God vibes only. vibes only. God vibes only. God vibes only.
Good vibes.
Thank you for tuning in to the Push It Forward Podcast Network. I'm your humbled executive producer, Harut, and this is the Cosmic Convos Podcast. On Cosmic Convos, Brother Ra and myself gets into how to utilize sidereal astrology as a powerful organizing tool for your life. Whether you're talking about starting a family, getting married, raising children, starting a business, going into a new career, what career you need to choose, and a whole host of other topics relevant to everyone's life. All right. Make sure you check us out on Patreon, where we release exclusive content to all of our patrons, and you get the opportunity to directly interact with us and ask questions and even help us determine the shows that we cover on our weekly podcast. All right. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy.
You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos Podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation. The place where stars and minds align.
Peace. You're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos Podcast. I'm your humble host, Harut, and I got my good brother here, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Living my best life, as they say.
Say you living your best life out here?
Living my best life, brother.
I hear that, man. I'm trying, like I keep telling you, man, I'm trying to get like you, man. I'm trying to live my best life out here.
Man, if I had your hand, I'd turn mine in, bro.
Indeed, man. I already told you, man. I cut mine off. Indeed. But before we get too far, I want to remind you all, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel, and make sure you hit that notification bell or whatnot, so you can be locked in when we go live. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group, Caliprucia Astrology, and our good people over there on Patreon. Big up to y'all. Or whatnot, and also this episode has been brought to you by Zencastr. Now, Zencastr is a platform that allows you to record remotely with one other or multiple guests at high quality audio basically, this is the way that Ra and I was able to start this podcast, us being in two different cities, being halfway across the country from each other. And it still sounds like we're both in the same room. At the code listed in the description, you can get 30% off of your, I believe, your first month of the Zencastr subscription service. If you want to start your own podcast or any type of kind of audio platform, interviewing platform that you got going on or whatnot. So definitely you want to check out Zencastr. And if you want to connect with us on, other social platforms, you can follow us on Instagram at Cosmic Convo. That's CosmicConvo. Find us there, and from there you can get to you can get to my personal Instagram, you can get to the Push It Forward Instagram page and everything like that. And also make sure when you go to the our YouTube channel, you subscribe to all the channels in the content family. That's Knife Lord Films, that's the Single Dad Podcast. We're going to be relaunching that pretty soon, and also Calipurusha Astrology's YouTube channel or whatnot. And in that vein, Brother Ra, how can the people get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me via Shekhem Ra on either Facebook or IG, or actually Facebook or IG via Shekhem Ra. You can get a hold of me at Kalapurusha Astrology via Twitter. I'm on Twitter now. And then also you can email me at kalapurushastrology@gmail.com, or you can even contact me via kalapurushastrology.com. So we've got a few ways for the people to connect. So if you're interested
Indeed.
in a consultation, if you're interested in upcoming classes, definitely let me know and we will get you right and ready.
Indeed. Big up to that. Big up to that. So, here we are. Season 5, episode 19 or whatnot. We're almost done with this particular season. Another, good season almost in the book. Or whatnot. I got about 5 more episodes to go after this one or whatnot. And this one is going to be an interesting one because it's, we always, do these post checks or whatnot. These kind of checkpoints. We did. I think we've done maybe 2 so far this season, possibly. But if you go back and you listen to those or watch those, you'll see a lot of what we were talking about is starting to come to pass. So much so that I think it's a good idea for us to talk about it now. So in particular, we're going to focus on, why has it been so aggressive lately, so violent? We got mass shootings, we have high profile people, losing their life abruptly, different things like that. So we're going to definitely get into that. Before we get into that, I want to ask you, Rod, you got anything that you wanted to cover just preliminarily before we jump into this topic, or where you at?
Not really. It's just interesting that the way these forces work. It's almost undeniable that this is what we're. When you look at the heavens and how things move, even when you don't have all the data,
Mm-hmm.
like we were talking about earlier, you can still see the workings in the making. You know what I mean? You can
Right.
still see something stirring if you don't have the exact time or you know, the exact specific pinpointing information, you can still see things at work and how it comes to a culmination point. So if you all are out there and you don't have access to your time of birth or you don't know the information, don't ever feel like you're at a disadvantage completely. You have access to knowledge even via just looking at the transits and how they impact planets that are just placed in general. So that's the good thing about this is that a little bit goes a long way. And we're just talking about, the football player and things like that, how that individual is experiencing, some turmoil, and that turmoil can be seen via the transits, via sidereal astrology. It wouldn't work with tropical. It doesn't, and it's a beautiful thing to have access to. This kind of it's a gift to be able to see just in the slightest way, what's occurring in someone's destiny or in the world around us. So, folks out there, test it, try it, see what it does, and you know, consider yourself um, having a leg up on those around you that may not have insight into things that manifest in a day on a daily basis.
Indeed, indeed, and drive that point home. I got some interesting reactions coming up, so definitely be stay tuned to that because you'll see. I mean, yeah, just stay tuned to that because I mostly end up reacting to these tropical astrology videos because I mean I gotta give them their props. They got the marketing game on lock and whatnot. As far as getting a message across to people and generating volume and everything like that. They definitely got that on lock. So I'm gonna definitely give them a big up to them for that. Indeed, but so let's talk about what's going on right now. Here we are, almost at official summer point. Got the summer solstice coming up, and I think since the last time we did this, we got some key movements that's happened that's definitely playing a major role in what kind of what we've been seeing lately. I mean, it's been hot, physically in certain places, especially here in Atlanta, man. It's been blazing outside. Fortunately for me, I like the heat, so we good. But it's been hot, kind of figuratively as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially in Atlanta, it's been hot in Atlanta or whatnot. You don't want to get caught, lacking on a bunch of levels out here. So let's talk about a little bit why. What's going on in the skies right now that's
Yeah,
contributing to this?
we said it, and we said it right.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Rahu in Aries is the jump off. You know, K2 in Libra is the supporting back end of that jump off, and you know it just really highlights and points to the disposition that you know compromise and peace, seeing things eye to eye, is just very difficult in the sense of the cosmic weather right now. Right, it's
Right.
just not an easy thing to do when you have um, that disposition or that notion be to be first, to be right, to be in the position of being in the winner's seat, right? To not look like a loser, right? Is what this is all about. And you know, interestingly enough, just kind of add into that, you know, there's a lot of things that are going on. It'd be nice, what I was just thinking. It would be nice if we had access to the chart of the brother that played the villain in Black Panther.
Michael
I was
B.
just
Jordan.
thinking Michael B. Jordan,
You
right?
know, I might
Because
have his chart in here. I'm gonna look. I think I might have his chart.
it would be interesting to see, right?
Let's see.
And the reason why I'm adding him in there is because I'm sure it's probably public knowledge by now, or everyone is may have heard, right, that uh, himself and his paramour um, have recently split, and not any fault of his own, right? But from what the conjecture is that he wanted to pursue a more in depth and more robust level of the relationship and really get to the point of time and not. And of course, young lady, Steve, Miss Harvey didn't feel that way, and so they have separated and gone their separate ways. it would be just interesting to see if K2 or Rahu is affecting something in his chart in a way that would cause the break, the severing, or that kind of scission, in his particular love life. And can happen a number of ways. It could be K2 in the seventh house, K2 conjunct the seventh lord, K2 conjunct Venus, right? K2 in the seventh from the moon, right? Those are all things that can generally create some type of segue or break in a relationship. So, you know, Rahu and K2 is not necessarily just violence in the sense of Libra or Aries and Libra, but it can also be where, that Libran kind of bond, the Libran exchange and commitment can be destroyed, right? And when we see it in a prominent place in a person's chart, then we can kind of guess or, add into the equation that this is something that is destined to happen. So, just something that came to my mind when we were just sitting here, if that is something that is a possibility when we look at his chart. So, um, you know, feel for the brother because, she's definitely a pretty young lady.
I've seen her in person.
Oh, have you? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she's
She
definitely
very,
she's a
very
looker.
attractive. Attractive is an understatement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, even without
It's a
makeup,
good-
she's not too bad on the eyes. So,
yeah, but you see her in person, is you get it. You're like, okay, all right, I get it.
yeah.
I get it.
But you know what they say? She's for the streets. Future had to put that out there on it, right? And I mean, adding into that when we talk about relationships and things that can go wrong, things that can snap, right? In fact, they got a show called Snapped, right? The unfortunate demise of the young man that is out of Atlanta, Trouble, right? Rest in peace, brother. Um, Definitely unfortunate that that had to be something that. Is this his right time?
Yep.
Interesting. We don't see anything conjunct Venus or anything of that nature. This is the. Oh, okay. This is his. That's his midheaven in the 10th and the ascendant. So
You might have got a blessing because he got
okay, so
Jupiter
his
return.
ascendant's Virgo. Okay, I got you. Because I'm looking like, wait a minute.
Oh yeah, you
I
switch
know
it.
what it does. Yeah.
Hold up.
Okay, there we go. All
All
right.
right.
Uh-huh.
You might have got a blessing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, interestingly enough, he's got Jupiter in there with Rahu and with Mars, and it's a Jupiter return. Yeah, he got a Jupiter return, so it might actually be a blessing. You got a good point there, my brother. It might be, might be getting off easy with this one,
Right.
even though it may not seem so. It definitely can. I don't see anything that would impinge or portend anything that would create that type of schism. Because
I
Venus
think
is,
was I think something that a lot of brothers is gonna have to realize, especially when you become high profile, is that it's probably not a good idea for you to date another to marry another high profile person.
mm-hmm.
Because she got her own agenda.
Yeah, yeah. She got her own
She
world.
she's not trying to really, you know, acquiesce to anything of what he got going on. Not really, because she's probably lightweight in competition.
Oh well, but here's the thing: she made $40 million last year.
Right, and nobody really knows what she does.
Right? Like, where's it coming from? Right?
Right.
So I mean,
So
I'm sure she's
money comes.
model
I mean,
material.
because you see a difference even with Beyonce and Jay-Z, right?
Oh, sure, sure.
Jay-Z, I mean, they both have kind of like they're not as active as they used to be, but she's definitely taken a step back a little bit. I mean, she still
Yeah,
is who she is,
she's had
but
to.
she's not
She,
like all in the video. You know what I mean? She's taking a step back. She's kind of chilling.
true, true.
You
Good
know?
point. Good point. Yeah, she's young, so she can't, making that decision. She's in the prime of her life, you know. And I mean, I can't necessarily blame either one of them. It's just timing, right? It's just, matter of two ships passing in the night, as they say. But it's never too, you never know. But the thing is I was just kind of looking at it just because, in the sense of what this Rahu and K2 can produce, right? It can definitely sever things, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can create a schism. I'm looking at his net worth, and it says his net worth is number 25 million. So he ain't like, you know what I'm saying? He's like major balling, and
But he
she
just,
made 40 million, if that's the case, right?
but see,
Uh,
he's just hitting his prime. It's 35.
True, true.
For a man, 35 is your prime.
Yeah, that is the best time of your life. Yeah, you got the best of both worlds.
Right.
You got the best of both worlds, definitely,
Cause that's when you
definitely.
really start. Most men, you got some people that go and they blow up quick, but most
Right,
men, 35 is where you start making your money. Start being able to be recognized amongst the other elites in whatever your field is and different things like that. They start to look at you, differently than what you were when you were, talented in your 20s, but now you're a man now, right?
true, true. And it says her net worth is only 1 million. That I'm like 40 million. She couldn't have made no 40 million. I mean, like you said,
Yeah,
what does she do? And it says she's a model, quote unquote. So I mean, she's definitely model material. But I'm like, it
yeah.
couldn't be. How could you make 40 million and you're not in any movies? You're not producing any music. You don't have your own line of makeup, what she's trying to do. But nonetheless, so you know, um, interesting. But good luck to both of them. Hopefully, they find their way and find some happiness inside of their new situation. But back to the topic in hand, we're talking about Rahu and K2 in this particular nodal axis. And if you ever kind of want to know what it feels like in your life personally, a good way to do that is just go back 18 and a half years to 19 years and look to see what was going on in your life at that time. See what was transitioning. See what was happening, right? See what was coming about or around you at that particular time of life. Be just generally back 20 years, be 2002. So 2000, 2003, 2004-ish. What was going on in your life? What was going on in in your field of awareness? Now, I do want to say this, right? And I want to make this not as necessarily a prediction because these are not things I like to predict. I really would rather not see these things in the heavens, but it just makes sense to add into the equation that you remember 20 years or 18 and a half, 19 years ago, right? That's when we were going into battle, right? To, deal with the whole aftermath of 9/11. You remember that?
Yeah, you remember gas prices was high too, right?
They sure
They was
were.
right around the same price.
So exactly. So interestingly enough, in my estimation, right, we're gonna be in a similar, not the same, but in a similar circumstance where we're gonna find ourselves, right, in a particular long drawn out excursion on the military side of things. And I'm talking about coming up here very soon, right, when China finally hits the button and does what it does. And this is what Rahu and Ketu is producing. It's the atmosphere. There's
Right.
more news that is being permeated in on YouTube and in the news world that's permeating, that is really talking about China going to get Taiwan, right? and it's just
Well,
it's lining up. The dominoes are lining up, and here's what they're doing. In case you're not aware, in case you haven't been keeping your eyes to the sky and ears to the street, so they're doing these war games, right? These dry runs. And when you do dry runs or war games, you're testing not only your own limits as far as what you're capable of, how fast you can execute, what are the parameters in case there's a response and so forth, but you're also testing the parameters of the individuals or the nation or group or what have you that you're considering um, pursuing as far as any type of military action. And what it does is it's actually a very, China is very intelligent when as far as they're doing this. What they're doing is they're doing these test kind of, drills, and they're flying over, right? Taiwan. Taiwan is responding as if to say, okay, you know what, we see you, we know you're here, but there's no real, exchange. What they're doing is preparing so that in the event that it looks like a dry run, it's not actually a dry run. It's actually they're going to invade, and you won't know the time because they're continuously doing this to kind of warm the energy up, but it keeps you on edge. But at the same time, you don't know how to react or when to react. So it could literally be like a false start type energy, where you kind of portray you're going to go, oh, we weren't really doing it. It was a drill, but look how they responded. So we responded. So that gives us the right to invade. This is what they're doing, right?
and
Um,
the interesting thing, so two parallels kind of with that situation because we had, of course, there is a thought out there, a school of thought that the whole CV-19 situation was actually like a bio attack, right? Coming from there. I'm not,
hmm,
because of YouTube,
mhm,
I'm not trying to, but that is a thought out there. And then, whether it's true or not, but even going back to that time period, we had the attacks from 9/11, and then the invasion, the time period that you're talking about that brings us to where we're at now.
mm,
It's like
I
the
see your
aftermath of that.
correlates. Right, right, right. So it could have been a viral bomb, right?
Hmm.
I mean, but craziest part is they being affected just like anybody else. But putting that out there in the ethers, and then letting that take over so the preparation process can ensue, and then
Hmm.
behind closed doors, all the while lining things up. And of course, we know full well that I mean, it's got to be evident to most people that Russia kind of said, okay, we'll start it and you finish it, right? Um, you know what I mean? And I didn't even notice, which is so interesting as a backdrop to American history and the relations between China and America. America trained a lot of the Chinese military. I did not know that, right? In the 60s, 50s, and 60s, right? To try to kind of create a open dialogue and a connection to offset that which they had with Russia. I did not know this, right? It was shocking to me, but this is true, right? When I did the research, they actually trained a lot of the military um, personnel and a lot of the military corps on how to engage in warfare because, of course, China was just coming out of a civil war at that time, and America went in and kind of gave them some knowledge. So, I mean, it's kind of like they say the chicken's coming home to roost. That's an interesting, thing that you would show them, right? Of all people, a communist nation, so-called communist nation, to say, hey, we'll teach you how to fight militarily, and then you turn around and then, you know, many decades later now, they're actually almost as advanced, if not more superior, in certain areas as far as warfare is concerned. So, it's
Well,
just interesting how this is coming full circle.
well, I mean that brings up another parallel, right? Because who did the United States train? Back in the '80s against Russia,
Afghanistan
right?
and
And
Afghanistan and
then Bin Laden himself.
yeah, sure did, and it came right back full circle, right? So, and I'm not saying that 9/11 was done by It could have been an inside job, but even still, right? It's been a thorn in the side of the United States as far as that whole Taliban kind of conversation is concerned. So it's interesting how these things work. But
Right.
you will hear the rattles of war, right? Hear the rattling of sabers here on out from the rest of the summer, right? Until right around August, right? And in August, there'll be a dialogue between, there'll be escalation, there'll be a dialogue, and then you'll see, on the news, you'll wake up maybe in August, morning, mid August morning, maybe in early August, because Mars will conjunct Rahu on August 4th. When that happens, right, that's gonna light up. That's gonna light up the show, right? It's going to definitely bring out the full power of Rahu in Aries because Mars will be there. Right? I mean, it's just you got to look at this from a divine perspective. This is timing, my people. Right? This is timing. You can't get better timing than this to have Rahu, which is the encroaching army. Most people don't know the Jyotish or Vedic astrology looks at Rahu and Ketu as armies. K2 is the army that plants the flag. That's why K2 is symbolized by a flag, right? It's what you've
Right.
already conquered. It's what you've already done. It's where you've already been. Right? Got the t-shirt, been there, done that, got the t-shirt type scenario. Whereas Rahu is the encroaching army. So the encroaching army is in Aries, and that is war, right? It's just it can't get any better timing than this. And I'm sure, it wouldn't be surprising that if China has some astrologers, I'm sure bots are astrologers, but also Vedic astrologers to time the exact, when we're going to invade and when we're going to pursue this. So, it's
Well,
just uncanny for these things to be happening right around this time.
I also got Chimendunjia. They got
Chimino,
Chimendunjia.
but that's another astrology.
It's in that vein. It's got some it's very similar to feng shui, but it's it's
See, I
it's
told y'all,
more
don't let him fool you, right? He got some stuff, right? I've never heard of
it
Chimendongia.
yeah, Chimendunjia is like it's definitely used in military tactics.
Okay.
Because it's one of the foundational sciences that the Chinese was gifted at the very beginning. But Chimandunjia is that I'm about positive they're definitely using Chimandunjia. I mean, it's such a cold science to the point to where if you use the chart the right way, when you go into a negotiation,
Mm.
where you sit, the people you're negotiating with, right? So if
Oh, I got you. Okay,
you know what I mean,
I got
the
you.
room where it's
Right.
sitting at, because it's a level past feng shui, because
Okay.
it's real time. It's real time.
Mm-hmm.
You could sit in a place and be fighting a war. You understand what I'm saying? Just
Mm-hmm.
by the way that you're sitting, you and your team or your side is sitting, in the room or whatnot.
Wow,
Now,
that's deep.
when you align on the battlefield, that's a whole nother game, a whole nother piece of the Chimanunjia or whatnot. So I
Mm.
know China's using that. I'm sure.
Wow, that's deep. That's heavy. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely trying to create, and America is at the same time. They're trying to create a Pacific um, Ocean or Pacific Asia type of NATO. Right? They're trying to line up like the dominoes as fast as they can, and China's doing the same thing. Right?
Right.
So it's interesting how these things are unfolding. But this is all Rahu and Aries, people, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. We will be in October of next year before Rahu leaves Aries. So this is going to be ongoing. This is going to be continuing and perpetuating until Rahu moves um, into Pisces next year. So buckle up, right? But that's on the international side of things. When we talk about the domestic side, we talk about the on the national scene, right? It's just so interesting that these mass shootings have occurred, right? When Rahu is definitely moving through this particular apparatus called Aries, and the first one, Buffalo, you know, the Buffalo shooting, young 18-year-old, 19-year-old, racist, armed with, a very powerful, high powerful white rifle, goes in and basically hunts black people, right? Goes in and creates, takes out, basically creates a minor war-like circumstance on a group of, African Americans in that area. And, this is a telltale sign that really calls forth the understanding that Rahu is in Aries. This is what it is, right? The way it was done, and that's what I really want you to consider. The way it was done, it was like a military hit, going in there. And this is not something like, I know we have the scenario when the white fellow ran into the church, right, and did that. But that is a little different. This is more military style. This is ambush. When I say military, it's like ambushing someone, you know, sitting in the cut, sniping people off. That's what the whole Buffalo event was. And it's just crazy how these forces are playing out in such a precise way. That's why in the beginning, I mentioned in the very beginning of the season, right, we talked about this, right, that you got to be careful in places where people congregate. You just
Right.
got to keep your head on a swivel, right? And really be aware of your surroundings. And I'm going to share something here with you very shortly, even my own self included, right? This is very much the case. But when you have these type of energies at bay, then, in play, you have to really be mindful of what's going on around you. Now, this is also tied into, because, like my good brother said, this is the summer. And as I teach in astrology, astrology is not just looking at the planets and how they move and what signs they're in and the aspects. It's also tying it to the seasons, right? The warmer things get, the more apropos violence will take place or things will happen because of certain transactional energies that are in the atmosphere. When we get closer to the summer solstice, watch and see, right? We're going to approach summer solstice this month. So you're going to see more, right, of these type of scenarios play out as we move through. Of course, July 4th is coming. This is a definite time. And I'm telling my audience, telling the world at hand, be very careful on that day and on that weekend, right? You know, people shooting just to shoot, right? That's just the American tradition. Shooting because of the Fourth of July is just what people do, right? And it's interesting because it goes hand in hand with what is traditionally done at that time of the year, right? We talk about gunpowder and fireworks and firecrackers and things like that, right? This kind of goes hand in hand with it. So just be real careful. Just, it may not be a great idea to go to those big events that you have where you go, if you do, just be very away from the crowd. Be able to be behind the scenes if you're going to be in that environment to where you can maneuver and get your family or get yourself uh, out of that circumstance, because you don't want to be in the sitting in the middle and then you have someone that decides to say, what, this is a great time to exact, my revenge or take, and here's the thing, Rahu in Aries doesn't even need that type of revenge energy. It really doesn't. It's just
Mhm.
instant. It's instant. It's almost like out of nowhere, boom, here you go, right? It happens because Rahu is considered an uncoiling serpentine energy. It uncoils. right? And how it uncoils, it depends on the sign it's in. So if it uncoils fast and you can't even catch it, it's Aries, right? If it uncoils slower, then it's going to be, like in a Capricornian or a Aquarius type energy. So the sign that it's in shows how it uncoils, how it releases its energy, is what I'm saying, right? And because Rahu is like Saturn, right? Like K2 is like Mars, Rahu is like Saturn, then you're going to see these types of quick uncoilings and quick instantaneous, circumstances that come about. So, just really be careful, be aware, keep your head on a swivel, keep your distance, right? Play it safe, watch out. And the other side of this is K2s in Libra. So, being agreeable, finding common ground, seeing eye to eye, being able to um, say, you know what, there's a give and take. Those types of things those are going to be absent from the atmosphere, like I said, until October of next year. So, with that being said, right, we can see this right on a national scale and on a world scene. It also, we can talk about the whole school shooting where we lost 18 lives in Texas, right? This is another type scenario, right? Um, it's crazy because these things are just, I mean, it happened, and of course, it's happened previously, um, but considering, right, this is the season when we talk about, like, cosmic weather. This is the season for violence. Saturn in Aries is debilitated. Well, Rahu is like Saturn, so it's very agitated. It's very amped up. It's very disturbed in a sense, right? And there's really no powerful aspects to Rahu, right? When I say from Jupiter, which would calm the storm a little bit, right? It's not there. And so that being the case, then you have to understand that it's time to really take these things to heart and be a little bit more cautious in how you move, how we move. So that school shooting was definitely also a testament that Rahu is definitely doing his deal in Aries. Um, and there's, I'm sure, nationally speaking, there's a lot of other scenarios we can talk about that call out this type of scenario. Uh, I'm not saying that trouble is necessarily um, a byproduct, but I mean it is interesting that he lost his life, and if I'm correct, I think we got trouble. In fact, we got Trouble's chart here, right? He has Rahu, right, conjunct the moon, right? K2 conjunct the sun, right, and a debilitated sun. So that access definitely is there playing its hand. Um, K2 being in the seventh house, he was murdered over a woman.
Seventh house from the moon.
Oh, is that from the moon? Okay, I got you. Oh, because we don't have his exact birth time, do we?
Nope.
Okay. So again, that axis is still lit up. And look, he's born during a full moon, right? So that axis with that Rahu and Ketu moving right through still does its job, still does perform an action and taking, some serious repercussions around, the opposite sex or being in the midst of another party, in a sense of relationship. So, you can see it in that regard. It's right there. It's written. And sad as it is, right? It's a loss of two lives. Not only of his life, but of the gentleman that took his life. Now his life is going to be, for all intents and purposes, gone as well. So
Right.
this is how it's working, people. This is where we can begin to see these forces at play, and see it on a grand scale, from a world view, on a national scale, right? And even in the lives of people that have these particular accesses lit up, right? Sun, moon access, definitely is something that you got to consider. Um, you know, looking at, and I'm sorry, you do got Lori Harvey's chart up there, don't you? Let me see. Let me take just a quick gander at hers right quick. I want to see if there's
Well,
anything in her access.
I tell you one thing that's never fails whenever we talk about this is
No.
Chandra Magla.
Yeah, she got that Chandramanga. Yeah, that's definitely in play.
It never fails.
Man. Yeah, that Chandramanga boy. 'Cause you had it with what's her name? Defecating in people's beds and then running to tell that,
Amber Heard
cry
with
wolf.
this, man, with the
Amber
women
Heard.
with that
Chandramanga.
women with that Chandra Mangla, man, is
It's a very interesting combination,
right.
right? To say the least. Woo! I'm telling you, right? I know
Yana
personally
got it.
women that have it, and this is real. But back to the story at hand. Rahu in these types of scenarios is going to literally be blindsiding. It's going to blindside you. It's not going to be like you can specifically know how it's occurring and know how it's happening. And even where I live, right, there is an event that has taken place. In fact, a couple we'll talk about, but one that actually hit the news, and that very close to home, and you know some people that I know. There was a triple murder, triple homicide, right, in a home, just out of the clear blue. Interestingly enough, the homicide that happened was the individual that committed the murder is a nephew, and the murder involved um, uh, uh, a elder, not elderly, but older woman. I won't say elderly, but older woman, a young man, and a child, right? And I mean, this is all three generations from grandparent to child to grandchild, you know, murdered in their home, a home invasion. But the invasion was done by her nephew. So this is what I really mean by when you talk about you just don't expect it. You don't know where it's really going to come from. Her own nephew. There was no warning, no indication of dissent, no indication of an uh, of a argument or any type of thing. Just coming in and then taking their lives, right? And here's the sadistic thing about it: the young man was actually at the vigil of the individuals that were murdered, that he murdered. He was at the vigil, right? That's a very interesting and disturbing thought, to know that you're sitting amongst the murderer of the individual, right? You're sitting amongst the murderer of the person that took these people's lives. You're holding a candle, right? That's just that can show how Rahu and Aries can really disturb the ethers, can disturb the atmosphere, right? Can put us on, or we should be on high alert. Lock your doors, right? Make sure you're not just sitting out there, okay, we're good, nothing can happen, we're safe. Don't make that assumption, right? Because it could cost you and your family can could cost you and your family's life. And on a personal note, right? It's in traffic, right? Going to get something to eat, and I'm in the car, and next thing you know, right, I look over and I see just a family, gentleman, and but I don't know if it was his wife or something, but nonetheless, it looked to or appeared to be a family, a man, a gentleman, a woman, and a younger fella were in their yard. Looked like I thought they were doing yard work or something in the car. Next thing you know, right, hearing, sound like firecrackers. Sound like the caliber they were using wasn't really all that powerful, either one of them, but who knows? Nonetheless, I'm sitting in the middle of a walk by, right? But almost darn near caught in crossfire, right? And this is just sitting there, right, in traffic at a stoplight. So, you have to literally keep your head on a swivel, right? Thankfully, right, the individual didn't come over and to where the other side of the vehicle I was in, right? That didn't happen, but it was close enough to where I could, you could see, who and who was doing what and what was happening. And here's the thing: there was no argument, no loud voices, no, "Hey man, you did this," or "Hey man, get away." Nothing. Just straight up, all of a sudden, shooting. That's Rahu in Aries. That's K2 in Libra. Just out of the clear blue, right? Um, so I'm even here to testify that I keep my head on the swivel, right? And when I'm in public places, I'm always watching out, looking for things, signs, hearing, keeping my senses aware, so that I can maneuver it to keep my life and my family's life safe, right? So this is just
Indeed.
also something to consider, But there's going to be more circumstances, folks. It's not over, not by a
Indeed.
long shot, not by a long shot.
Yeah, it's yeah, I mean, because even just an overall temperament of people, you know, people on the edge,
It's edgy, right?
very,
It's heightened,
even
that you can almost sense, like, when we're talking about driving, for example, you know, road rage, you know, got to be, and people, I mean, think about it. People are on edge. Inflation is increasing, right? The cost of living is increasing, gas increasing, and the pay is not increasing, right? So
no,
that's also adding fuel to the fire. Then you have across the globe little small skirmishes. You have Russia and Ukraine situation, right? So this just is energy that's fueling the fire behind the scenes. And when you get that individual that just, for all intents and purposes, says, "Hey, this is it's really a reactionary energy. It's not even necessarily premeditated." You know what I mean? It's just almost reactionary. Almost, I'm just gonna let it all hang out and let the chips fall where they may. Right. So I mean that's what happened to Trouble, right? In the bedroom or in the house, fella comes in and he's seen, I don't know if he was following him or what have you, but he's like gone in an instant, right? From one gunshot to the one shot to the chest, right? I mean, it
yeah,
doesn't take much. And now, he's in the inner planes. So this is what we're talking about when you really got to be mindful of how things are. And Libra is the sign of relationships, so you got to consider that K2 energy, it feels like it's had enough. It feels like it's I'm over my head in this. I can't take any more, right? The scales are going to tip over and completely um, unbalance themselves. So this is also things to consider, right? And I'll make one early kind of comment. We'll talk about it. We'll actually do a podcast, maybe, or even make mention of it before the season is up. When we talk about these nakshatras, they have a big role to play in how these forces unravel themselves. And Rahu will be moving into Baharani as of June the 14th, which is within about 6 days. So you're going to see more interesting outcomes, right, on what this Baharani energy is going to produce. It's in Kritika right now. Kritika is, like it sounds, critical, but Kritika is a purification energy. Agni is the deity that rules Kritika, so it's a purifying. It's a it's it is not as intense as it could be, even though it is ruled by the sun and it is a hot, very intense nakshatra. Baharani is going to be a lot different because Baharani is ruled by Yama, the god of death, Yamaraj, right? And so, or the god of judgment, as they would say, right, in the Indian pantheon. So, you know, we'll cover maybe a little bit more in depth of what that looks like and how that works because it'll be there until February of 2023. But just again, people, right? Use these things as my good brother has, and we have in on the Comcast on the Cosmic Convos podcast intro. You can use these things to plan your lives, but you can also use these things to save your life, right? To save the lives of people that are around you. So if you notice people with that Rahu, excuse me, with that Aries Libra axis lit up, definitely let them know, right, that they really need to be mindful. They need to be careful and they need to be cautious so that they are not victims of these particular energies and circumstances.
To that point, you know, um, what's some positive? What would you say some positives to a transit like this are, or
Oh,
who wins in in,
well,
in these type of situations?
well, in these situations, no one really wins, but Rahu
Well, not
in
situations, but like in a transit like this,
it can
who
be
wins?
innovation, right? Um, it can be crossing and facing a lot of your fears, right? Crossing over and dealing with a lot of your, idiosyncrasies, right? Moving into new um, possibilities as far as, you know, things that you may want to do, right? Because, you know, Aries is a pioneering energy, right? It wants to be a pioneer. It wants to, you know, take on a challenge, so one good thing that you could do is start an exercise regimen. Good time to do that, right? If you've been waiting to get out there and exercise, to get healthy, to get fit, this will be the time when Rahu is edging, humanity on to say, "Hey, take the bull by the horns, or take the ram by the horns, rather." Right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, go get it. Right? If there's maybe a new project you want to start, and it's been something that you've been lulling behind, it's a good time to take and say, you know what? Let me go ahead and break through and push myself to get these things done. It gives you that amped up energy as far as Rahu is, as far as Aries is concerned. Um, if you're trying to go for a promotion or to break into a new field, right? It's a good thing to do that at this time because this is the time when you can break barriers, right? You can move in to new uncharted territories. We're talking about with China, right? China is going to definitely be one that's going to test that theory, right, to see how well they can accommodate Rahu and Aries as far as acquiring or getting back to, right, what they feel is their rightful place and their status in that particular hemisphere of the world. Um, so this can apply to us on a minute scale, on a personal level, where we can take this energy and conquer, right, those things that we need to really deal with that are unhealthy, that are unrewarding, that are what we consider may have blocked or um, made us more sedentary in the past. So it's definitely positives to every transit, and I don't want to paint a doom and gloom picture, but it is something we must consider in that it is an unstable energy, right? So if you're gonna do your workout regimen, make sure you stay consistent. Don't let it be just a one-time shot deal. Make sure you set it up to where you ride this out and you begin to inculcate it into as far as your lifestyle is concerned. Because one thing about Rahu and Aries, it can fizzle out. It can push, and then next thing you know, right, you're not working out anymore because Rahu is like Saturn, so it can create that all of a sudden and then nothing. But definitely those positive things can be done at this particular time, especially if it's in prominent areas like in your ascendant, if it's in your 10th house, right? Those are things that you can always use um, to utilize, moving into things that are going to be beneficial to you long term, but also going to be um, oriented around challenging yourself.
Yeah.
So, right, definitely good job to bring that up, because I don't want to leave people with a sense of um, um, being discouraged or being frustrated, which can even add into it even more. But it is a powerful time to utilize Aryan energy and to put it to good use.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Well, as usual, this has been episode 19 of season 5 or whatnot. We want to thank you all for tuning in or whatnot. Ra, you had anything that you wanted to say to the people before we officially close this thing out?
Yes, sir. Just my old adage: keep your eyes to the sky and your ears to the street. Right? And
Indeed,
things will work
indeed,
out very
indeed.
well.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So I want to remind you all, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell if you haven't done already. And thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with another great episode, all right? We're out. Peace.